The Nautilus are creatures that have always fascinated me since I was a wee lad. Today I'm going to go over their appearance, some unique biological features, and the history to why these little guys are such underdogs. I'll sprinkle in some facts at the end for those who can make it to the end. So without further ado, let's begin. For appearance, the Nautilus looks like a mix between a squid and a clam. The main colors that they bear are red and white. The red in particular looks almost like tiger stripes, painting their shell from top to bottom. The underside of their shell is almost exclusively white. Coming out of the shell are about 60 to 90 tentacles. There are about 3 variations to these tentacles, much more than their 8 to 10 armed cousins. Covering these tentacles is a leathery cap-like structure that is used to close up shop in the event of danger. Lastly, we have their simple, googly eyes on both sides of the creature, resembling a small little pinhole. They move around somewhat slowly compared to their relatives, but it is quite cute how they float around and interact with one another. Somewhat simple design compared to other aquatic invertebrates, but sometimes simplicity can look better than something that's a bit over-designed. To me, they look like floating shells in the big blue. Nautili are the sole living cephalopods whose bony structure is externalized as a shell. The shell is coiled and pressure resistant and floating at a depth of about 800 meters or 2,600 feet. The Nautilus shell is composed of 2 layers, a matte white outer layer with dark orange stripes, and a striking white iridescent inner layer. The innermost portion of the shell is a pearlescent blue-gray. The osmena pearl, contrary to its name, is not a pearl but a jewelry product derived from this part of the shell. Internally, the shell divides into chimerae, or chambers. The chambered section being called the phragmocone. The divisions are defined by septa, each of which is pierced in the middle by a duct called the siphuncle. As the Nautilus matures, it creates new, larger chimerae, or chambers, and moves its growing body into the larger space, sealing the vacuum chamber with a new septum. The chimerae, or chambers, increase in number from around 4 at the moment of hatching to 30 or more in adults. The shell coloration also keeps the animal cryptic in the water. When seen from above, the shell is darker in color and marked with those irregular stripes we've been saying, which helps it blend into the dark water below. The underside is almost completely white, like I mentioned before, making the animal indistinguishable from brighter waters near the surface. This mode of camouflage is called countershading. The tentacles of a nautilus serve a wide range of function. Without going into the complexities of naming each tentacle type, I can tell you that they use their tentacles for grasping, smelling, and mating, of course. The mouth consists of a parrot-like beak made up of 2 interlocking jaws capable of ripping the animal's food, mostly crustaceans, from the rocks to which they are attached. The crop is the largest portion of the digestive tract and is highly extensible. From the crop, food passes to the small muscular stomach for crushing and then goes past the digestive caesium before entering the relatively brief intestine. The central component of the Nautilus nervous system is the ossiphagal nerve ring, which is a collection of ganglia, commissures, and connectives that together form a ring around the animal's oesophagus. From this ring extend all of the nerves forward to the mouth, tentacles, and funnel, laterally to the eyes and the rhinophores, and posteriorly to the remaining organs. The nerve ring does not constitute what is typically considered a cephalopod brain. The upper portion of the nerve ring lacks differentiated lobes, and most of the nervous tissue appears to focus on finding and consuming food. For example, it lacks a higher learning center. Nautili also tend to have rather short memory spans, and the nerve ring is not protected by any form of brain case. In a study in 2008, a group of nautiluses were given food as a bright blue light flashed until they began to associate the light with food, extending their tentacles every time the blue light was flashed. The blue light was again flashed without food for 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 6 hours, 12 hours, and 24 hours later. The Nautiluses continued to respond excitedly to the blue light for up to 30 minutes after the experiment. An hour later, they showed no reaction to the blue light. However, between 6 and 12 hours after the training, they again responded to the blue light, but more tentatively. The researchers concluded that Nautiluses have memory capabilities similar to the short-term and long-term memories of the more advanced cephalopods, despite having a different brain structure. However, the long-term memory capability of Nautiluses was much shorter than that of other cephalopods. The Nautiluses completely forgot the earlier training 24 hours later, in contrast to octopuses, for example, which can remember conditioning for weeks afterwards. However, this may be simply the result of the conditioning procedure being suboptimal for sustaining long-term memories in Nautiluses. Nevertheless, the study showed that scientists had previously underestimated the memory capabilities of the Nautiluses. Unlike many other cephalopods, Nautiluses do not have what many consider to be good vision. Their eye structure is highly developed but lacks a solid lens, whereas a sealed lens allows for the formation of highly focused and cleared, detailed surround imagery. Nautilus have a simple pinhole eye, open to the environment, which only allows for the creation of correspondingly simple imagery. Instead of vision, the animal is thought to use smell as a primary sense for foraging and for locating and identifying potential mates. They were first discovered in 1758 within the northwestern Philippines. The species itself is believed to have originated close to 500 million years ago. Relatives. Currently, their closest relatives are octopuses and cuttlefish. Their current state. At this moment, the Nautilus is listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. Nautiluses are collected or fished for sale as live animals or to carve their shells for souvenirs and collectibles. Not for just the shape of the shell, but also the nacreous inner shell layer, which is used as a pearl substitute. In Samoa, Nautilus shells decorate the forehead band of traditional headdresses called toigas. Nautilus shells were popular items in the Renaissance, and were often mounted by goldsmiths on a thin stem to make extravagant Nautilus shell cups. The late maturity, long gestation period, and long lifespan of Nautiluses suggests that these species are vulnerable to overexploitation, and demand for the ornamental shell is causing population declines. The threat from trade in these shells has led to countries such as Indonesia legally protecting the chambered Nautilus with fines of up to $8,500 US and or 5 years imprisoned for trading in this species. Despite their legal protection, these shells were reported to be openly sold at tourist areas in Bali as of 2014. The continued trade of these animals has led to a call for increased protection. The lifespan of Nautiluses may exceed 20 years, which is exceptionally lengthy for a cephalopod, many of whom live less than 3, even in captivity and under ideal living conditions. The nautili reproduce by laying eggs. Gravid females attach the fertilized eggs either singly or in small batches to rocks in warm water, whereupon the eggs take 8 to 12 months to develop until the over 1-inch juveniles hatch. Females spawn once per year and regenerate their gonads, making Nautiluses the only cephalopods to possess this ability. Because if you're unfamiliar, most other cephalopods typically do not survive the first cycle of reproduction. Nautiluses are also sexually dimorphic, in that the males have 4 tentacles modified into an organ called the spadex, which transfers sperm into the female's mantle during mating. At sexual maturity, the male shell becomes slightly larger than the female's. However, nautili typically do not reach sexual maturity until they are about 15 years old, limiting the reproductive lifespan to often less than 5 years. Nautili are scavengers and opportunistic predators. They eat lobster molts, hermit crabs, and any carrion, or decaying matter, that they can find. Predators. They have multiple predators, including sharks, bony fish, octopus, basically anything that's capable of destroying their shell. To conclude, this species of cephalopod has been my favorite ever since I was young. They may be ancient, but they are underdogs, and have adapted to challenging oceans, and have been around longer than the dinosaurs. I hope one day we can say that they are officially off the endangered species list. Thank you, until next time. Thank you so much if you made it to the end and were able to bear with my first video stumbles. I plan on putting more content out there in this style, so if this gets your neurons firing, please consider subscribing. I'm also open to animal suggestions for the future. If used, I'll give you a shout out. Thanks again, until next time.